My in-laws called my 8-year-old daughter worthless at Christmas dinner. Then they demanded $42,000 I had inherited, claiming she would just waste it. I did not argue. I stood up, smiled, and handed them a letter from my attorney. It said the house was actually left to someone else entirely. They were escorted out before the dessert was served. Some people who heard about that night still think I went too far. After everything you are about to hear, I want to know if you agree. My name is Nora Scott. I have been called difficult, cold, calculating, and ungrateful by the same family that sat across a holiday table and told my daughter she had no worth. I have never once disputed those adjectives. What I dispute is the idea that any of those qualities are weaknesses. Let me tell you how we got here. The setting, if you need it, my in-laws' house in Scottsdale, Arizona. A large, formal dining room with a table that seats 14. My husband Daniel's family had arranged a Christmas dinner for what turned out to be 11 people: his parents, his older brother and sister-in-law, 2 cousins with their spouses, and us. Me, Daniel, and our daughter, Lily. Lily was wearing a red velvet dress she had picked out herself 3 weeks earlier. She had been excited about Christmas dinner for days. She had helped me wrap the presents we brought, carefully selecting which ribbons went on which boxes. She is 8 years old. She still believes that holidays are supposed to feel the way they look in the movies. I want you to hold that image of her, because it matters to what comes next. To understand why that night ended the way it did, I need to take you back to the beginning of my marriage into the Ferrara family. I married Daniel Ferrara 7 years ago. He is a good man, genuinely, fundamentally good, but he was raised by a family that operates on a very specific and unspoken hierarchy. His father, Enzo Ferrara, built a commercial real estate business from the ground up and spent the next 30 years making sure everyone around him felt the weight of that accomplishment. His mother, Gloria Ferrara, is the kind of woman who delivers compliments so precisely calibrated that you only realize they were insults 2 hours after she said them. She reaches for her pearls when she is trying to control a conversation, and I have watched that hand travel to her collarbones so many times over the years that I stopped counting somewhere around year 3. Daniel's older brother, Marco, works in their father's business. His wife, Dina, is polished, quiet, and has the particular skill of agreeing with whoever holds power in the room while never technically saying anything that could be used against her later. They have 3 children. Their youngest is close in age to Lily, which is why Lily always wanted to go to these gatherings. She liked having someone to play with. That was the household into which I married. And from the very first Thanksgiving I attended as Daniel's girlfriend, I understood my position in the structure. I was from outside. I did not have family money. My mother had worked 2 jobs when I was growing up, and my father had passed when I was 12, leaving a modest life insurance policy and a lot of uncashed potential. Gloria noticed all of this immediately and logged it the way a judge marks a score, once, permanently, in permanent ink. The underestimating started early and was never subtle enough to confront directly. That is the art of it, really. You cannot argue against tone. You cannot file a complaint about implication. The first time it crystallized for me was about 6 months into the marriage. We were at a family birthday party for Marco's oldest, and I mentioned that I was working on a contract with a property development group in Phoenix. I had been in real estate consulting for 4 years at that point, building a client list that was starting to generate serious income. Gloria set down her fork with the careful, slow precision she uses when she wants to signal that she is exercising enormous patience, and said, "That is so lovely that you stay busy, Nora. It is important to have something to do." Then she turned to ask Marco's wife about her Pilates instructor. I did not correct her. I did not explain the contract value, which was $168,000, the largest of my career to that point. I smiled, excused myself, and walked to the bathroom, where I called my business partner and told her to accept the secondary proposal from the Chandler Group I had been sitting on for a week. I made a decision that afternoon in that bathroom. I was not going to perform my success for anyone in that family. I was going to build it. And I was going to be very selective about what they knew and when they knew it. The second incident was 2 years later. Daniel and I had been discussing starting a family, and I mentioned to Gloria at a Sunday lunch that we had been looking at houses in North Scottsdale. She looked at Daniel with an expression of maternal concern that did not include me and said, "You know, it might be smarter to stay closer to us while you are just getting started." Property values are difficult to navigate if you do not know what you are doing. She reached for her pearls. Maybe Enzo could advise you. What she did not know, what Daniel had agreed we would not share yet, was that I had already purchased a property. Not the house we were looking at to live in. A rental property in Tempe that I had been quietly building toward for 18 months with a combination of my consulting income and a strategic loan. It was worth $400,000 at purchase, and I had put down $82,000. I owned it outright within my own holding structure. My financial advisor, Thomas Ackafer, had helped me structure it cleanly and efficiently, and he had specifically noted during our third meeting that keeping it separate from joint finances, at least initially, was simply sound planning. "Thank you, Gloria," I said. "We will definitely think about that." If you have ever been counted out by someone who should have known better, by someone who smiled while they dismissed you, you know exactly what that silence feels like. You know how it calcifies into something you stop being angry about and start being deliberate about. The third incident was the one that stopped being about me. Lily was 4 years old. We had brought her to a family 4th of July gathering, and she was in the backyard with Marco's kids, completely happy, running through a sprinkler. Gloria came to stand beside me at the edge of the patio and watched her for a moment with the specific quality of silence she uses before saying something she has prepared. "Daniel told me about the inheritance from your uncle," she said. $42,000. She did not look at me. "I hope you're thinking carefully about what you do with it. Money like that can disappear very quickly if you are not strategic." My Uncle Bernard had passed 6 months earlier. He was my mother's older brother, never married, no children, and he had left his estate to be divided between my mother and me. My share was $42,000. I had not touched it. It was sitting in a dedicated account while I decided what to do with it. "I appreciate that," I said. "Enzo and I have discussed it," Gloria continued. "We think it would make sense for you to contribute it to the family investment fund. The returns are excellent, and it would be a way of really becoming part of what we have built here." She finally looked at me, and her expression was the warm, beneficent look of someone extending an extraordinary favor. "You could say it was Lily's inheritance, from us, eventually." I looked at my daughter running through the sprinkler, soaking wet and laughing, completely unaware that her grandmother was standing 20 feet away treating her future like a line item. "Let me think about that," I said. I called my attorney the next morning. Her name is Renata Voss. I had first consulted her in February of the previous year about the Tempe property, and she had since become the professional I trusted most with anything structurally important in my financial life. Our first meeting regarding the inheritance was on a Tuesday morning in her office near Camelback Road. I told her about Gloria's suggestion. Renata's expression did not change, but she set her pen down on the legal pad in front of her with the deliberateness of someone choosing not to say the first thing that came to mind. "You are under no obligation to do anything with that money," she told me. "If you are receiving pressure to contribute personal inheritance to a family investment structure without documentation, my strong advice is to do nothing until you have reviewed exactly what that structure looks like legally." I asked her what she recommended. "First," she said, "we document this conversation you had with Gloria. Date, setting, what was said. Second, I would recommend establishing a trust structure for that $42,000 with a very specific designated beneficiary. And third, and this is important, Nora, I want you to tell me everything about the house." There was a house. That is the part I have not told you yet, because the timing of when I learned it is the reason the Christmas dinner ended the way it did. My Uncle Bernard had owned a house in Flagstaff. A small property, nothing extravagant, purchased decades ago when he was young and prices in northern Arizona were forgiving to modest incomes. When he passed, the estate went through probate, and the initial documentation that came to my mother and me focused on the liquid assets, the savings, the small investment accounts, the $42,000 that Gloria had decided to treat as community property before the check had even fully cleared. What nobody in the Ferrara family knew, what I had not yet fully understood myself when Gloria made her suggestion at that 4th of July gathering, was that the Flagstaff house had a separate clause in Bernard's will. It was not included in the liquid estate division. It was named specifically, and it was named to me, alone. The property appraised at $270,000. My uncle had watched the Flagstaff market quietly for 30 years. He was not a sophisticated investor. He was simply a man who bought a house, paid it off, and then apparently decided, at some point I will never fully understand, that I was the person he wanted to leave it to. I found out in full on a Thursday in September, 8 months before the Christmas dinner where everything came apart. Renata had been working through the probate details and called me in the late afternoon. "The house transfers to you," she said. "Clean title, no conditions." I sat in my car in the parking lot of a grocery store for about 20 minutes after that call, not going anywhere, just sitting with the information. Then I drove home, made dinner, helped Lily with her homework, and did not say a single word about it to anyone in the Ferrara family. I called Thomas Ackhaffer the following morning and asked him to begin assessing the property's rental potential alongside its current market value. He came back to me within 2 weeks with a portfolio analysis that included the Flagstaff house, my Tempe rental property, and 3 years of consulting income projections. The number at the bottom of the summary page was larger than anything the Ferraras thought I was worth. I also took the $42,000 from my uncle's liquid estate and, with Renata's guidance, established a dedicated educational trust for Lily. Thomas managed it. The beneficiary was Lily. The trustee was me. It was structured so that it grew quietly, protected, completely outside any family investment fund that anyone named Ferrara had ever heard of. Gloria asked me twice more in the months that followed whether I had given more thought to contributing the inheritance to the family fund. Both times I told her I was still thinking about it. Both times I was telling the absolute truth. I was thinking about it every single time I met with Renata. I was thinking about it when I reviewed the trust documentation. I was thinking about it when Thomas showed me the first quarterly statement from Lily's educational account, which by that October had grown to $46,000. The close call happened in November, about 6 weeks before Christmas. We were at Enzo and Gloria's house for a Sunday dinner, not a holiday event, just the regular Sunday obligation that the Ferrara family maintains with the consistency of a standing appointment. Daniel and Marco were in the study talking about something related to the business, and I was in the kitchen helping clear the table while Gloria made coffee. Dina was at the counter slicing a cake she had brought, and the conversation was the kind that sounds like nothing but occasionally contains something. Dina asked me, in her careful, neutral voice, whether I had made any decisions about my uncle's estate yet. I said I was still working through a few things with an advisor. Gloria carried the coffee carafe to the counter and did not look at me when she spoke. "You know, Enzo has been asking. It would really mean something to him, Nora, to feel like you were committed to the family's future." I was looking at the kitchen window when she said that. Outside, through the glass, Lily and Marco's youngest were playing on the back patio, some game they had invented involving a ball and a chalk grid on the concrete. Lily was explaining the rules with the complete seriousness of a child who has thought very carefully about fairness. "I understand that," I said. "I am going to make sure I do the right thing with it." Neither of them had any reason to interpret that as anything other than agreement. That is the thing about technically truthful statements, they are the most comfortable lies you will ever tell. Dina cut another slice of cake. Gloria poured the coffee. I finished clearing the table and went outside to watch my daughter play, and I pulled out my phone and sent Renata a message. "Confirm the trust documentation is finalized." Her reply came back in 11 minutes. Confirmed, notarized, filed. Everything was in order. The second close call came just 3 weeks later. At a family event that was supposed to be a casual pre-Christmas gathering at Marco and Dina's house. Enzo had apparently decided this was the moment to raise the inheritance question directly, with the whole family present as witnesses to the generosity he was about to extend. He waited until after dinner, when we were all in the living room and the children had been sent upstairs. Then he turned to me with the particular warmth he deploys when he wants something, and said that he had been thinking a lot about the family's legacy and about what it meant to build something that would outlast any one person. He talked for about 4 minutes about what he and Gloria had constructed together, about Marco's contributions, about the value of pooled resources versus fragmented individual choices. Then he said, "Nora, we would like to formally invite you to contribute your inheritance to the family investment portfolio. We will match it. 42,000 becomes 84,000 in the fund, with full documentation, and it would be invested in Lily's name as a family legacy gift." Everyone in the room was looking at me. Daniel's hand on the couch cushion next to me shifted slightly. He knew me well enough to recognize that I had gone very, very still. I looked at Enzo. I kept my face entirely open. "That is an extremely generous offer," I said. "I want to make sure I understand the documentation correctly before I commit to anything. Can you have your attorney send the fund structure to mine for review?" Enzo's expression held for a beat, 2 beats, then settled back into approval. "Of course, that is the responsible thing to do." He picked up his phone. I picked up mine. He was texting someone. I was sending Renata a message that said, "If anyone from the Ferrara family contacts you regarding an investment fund, you have full authorization to respond with complete documentation of all existing trust structures." Her reply, "Understood. I have everything ready." I put my phone back in my pocket and accepted a cup of coffee from Gloria, who was smiling at me with what looked like genuine warmth, and possibly was, she might have genuinely believed she had won something that evening. She reached for her pearls. Everything I had built was about to be tested in front of the entire Ferrara family. And the timing, Christmas dinner, 3 weeks away, could not have been more perfect. Christmas that year fell on a Thursday. We arrived at Enzo and Gloria's house at 4 in the afternoon, which was the expected time, and Lily had her red velvet dress on and a wrapped present for each of Marco's kids tucked under her arm. She had made the wrapping paper herself, crayon drawings on brown craft paper, which I thought was wonderful and which Gloria, upon seeing it, described as very homemade in the tone she reserves for things she finds embarrassing. The house was decorated the way it always was, formal, expensive, coordinated. A professional had done the garlands and the table settings. Everything matched. Nothing was accidental. Enzo poured drinks in the front room while Marco and Daniel talked near the fireplace, and the children disappeared upstairs almost immediately, which was a relief to everyone, including the children. Dina found me in the kitchen while I was helping arrange the appetizer plates and asked, with the specific warmth she deploys when she is gathering information, whether Daniel and I had made any holiday plans for the coming year. "We are talking about taking Lily to the coast," I said. "She has never seen the ocean." "How lovely." Dina placed a row of crackers along the edge of a serving board with the care of someone who has been trained to care about such things. "You know, Marco and I were thinking about Costa Rica. If you wanted to come, we could split a villa. It would be more economical." She meant well by this. That is the thing about Dina that makes her harder to categorize than Gloria. She genuinely believes she is being helpful. She had learned helpfulness as a survival strategy in this family, and somewhere along the way it had become her actual personality. I did not hold it against her. "I will mention it to Daniel," I said. Gloria came into the kitchen then, carrying an empty tray, and the conversation shifted to the dinner timeline. Everything was normal, ordinary. The kind of family gathering that accumulates in memory as a single, undifferentiated mass of obligation. We moved to the dining room at 6:30, 11 people around the long table. Daniel was to my left, Lily to my right. Across from us, Marco and Dina with their youngest beside them. Enzo at the head of the table, Gloria at the other end. 2 cousins, Renato and his wife Claudia, completed the group. The first hour was uneventful. There was wine for the adults and sparkling cider for the children. The food was catered and excellent. Enzo told a story about a commercial property deal in Tempe that had gone better than expected. Marco laughed at the right moments. Daniel kept his hand on my knee under the table, which was something he did at family dinners when he was monitoring his own anxiety about them. Lily ate her food and talked quietly to Marco's youngest about something that involved superheroes. She was fine. Happy, even. That is the detail that matters most to me now when I think about that evening, how fine she was, right up until the moment she wasn't. It started with dessert. Gloria brought out a chocolate torte that the caterer had prepared, and there was the usual small ceremony of cutting and serving. Plates went around. Lily, who has never met a chocolate dessert she did not immediately love, looked at her slice with the focused enthusiasm of a child who has been very patient through a very adult dinner. Then Gloria looked at her, directly at her, across the table, and her expression carried something I had not seen her aim at Lily before. Not dismissal, not disinterest, something sharper. "Lily," Gloria's voice was clear and even, "do you know what your mother has been doing with your great-uncle's money?" The table shifted almost imperceptibly. Renato reached for his wine. Dina became very interested in her napkin. Lily looked up. "What money?" "The money that was supposed to be for the family." Gloria picked up her dessert fork. Your mother has been keeping it, sitting on it, not doing anything responsible with it. Gloria, Daniel's voice was low. She did not look at him. I am only saying that we have asked, very reasonably, for Nora to consider contributing to something that would benefit everyone, including this child, and she has not had the courtesy to give us a real answer in more than a year. Lily looked at me. I put my hand over hers on the table. Then Enzo set down his fork. He did it the way a man sets something down when he has decided the time for patience is over. The sound of it on the china plate was small and definitive. The truth, he said, is that money belongs in this family. Bernard was your uncle, Nora, not your personal windfall. That $42,000 should have come to this table and been invested properly. He looked around at the group with the expression of a patriarch confirming consensus. Lily is 8 years old. She does not understand money. She does not know what is good for her yet. And frankly, neither do you, or you would have done the right thing a year ago. That was not what broke me open. What broke me open was Gloria, who folded her hands on the table and looked at my daughter with complete, terrible composure and said, "The child is worthless to this conversation. She is 8. What could she possibly contribute to a serious discussion about a family's financial future? Nothing. She has nothing. She is nothing in this particular equation." The word landed in the room like something physical. Lily's hand went still under mine. She did not cry. She looked down at her plate of chocolate torte, and then she looked up at me, and what I saw on her face was the particular confusion of a child who has just been reduced and does not have the language for it yet. Dina made a sound. Not words, just a small involuntary sound, the kind a person makes when they flinch and catch themselves. Daniel stood up. "That is enough." "Sit down, Daniel." Enzo did not raise his voice. He never raised his voice. "I will not sit down. You just called my daughter." I said nothing. Your mother was speaking about the financial situation. She called Lily worthless at the Christmas table. The two cousins had stopped eating. Renato was looking at the centerpiece. His wife Claudia was looking at her husband. Marco had his hands flat on the tablecloth and was staring at some middle distance between himself and the window. I was not standing. I was sitting very still, my hand still over Lily's. I had a specific, clear thought. It was not emotional, it was architectural. The thought was, this is the last dinner. I looked at Lily and kept my voice completely normal. "Can you go upstairs with the other kids for a little while? I think the grown-ups need to have a conversation." She looked at me for a long second, checking something, the way children do. Then she slid off her chair and walked out of the room without looking at anyone else at the table. I listened to her footsteps on the stairs until I could not hear them anymore. Then I pushed back my chair, stood up, reached into my bag on the floor beside me, and took out an envelope. It was white, legal-sized. My name was typed in the return address corner, and below it, Renata Voss, attorney at law, with the address of her Camelback Road office. I set it on the table in front of Enzo. "I have been waiting for the right moment to share this," I said. "I think this is it." Enzo looked at the envelope. He did not reach for it. I pulled out my phone, stepped away from the table, and walked into the hallway. I called Renata from memory. She answered on the third ring because I had called her that morning and told her I might call again before the end of the evening. "We are moving on the original timeline," I said. "Everything goes tonight." Her voice was calm and professional. "I will send the documentation package to the secondary address. It will be there by morning." "Thank you." I went back into the dining room. 11 people, 10 of them looking at me. One of them, Marco, still looking at the tablecloth. Enzo had not touched the envelope. I sat down. I folded my hands in front of me. And I looked at Gloria across the table and waited, because the confrontation had been building for 3 years, and I was not going to rush it now that it had finally arrived. Gloria looked at the envelope, then at me. Her hand moved toward her necklace, stopped, and settled back onto the table. "What is that?" "Open it." She did not move. Enzo looked at her. Some communication passed between them that I had seen before and never been able to fully decode, the language of a long marriage compressed into a glance. Enzo picked up the envelope. He opened it. Inside was a single-page summary document that Renata and I had spent 4 hours preparing over 2 separate meetings. It was not a threatening letter. It was not an ultimatum. It was a statement of fact, formatted clearly, with the property record number at the top and the appraised value 2 lines below. He reviewed it. A pause settled over the table. 2 seconds. 3, then 5, which is a long time when 11 people are sitting in a room. "What is this?" He said it flatly. Not a question, a statement pushed into question shape by disbelief. That is the deed transfer document for my Uncle Bernard's house in Flagstaff, I said. It transferred to my name alone when probate closed in November of last year. The current appraised value is $270,000. It is not part of the liquid estate, which means the $42,000 you have been requesting for 14 months was never the full picture. Gloria's hand went to her pearls at last. She gripped them rather than holding them. You never mentioned a house. No, I did not. Bernard had a house? Her voice came out differently, not the smooth, calibrated tone she usually deploys, something unsteady underneath it. Bernard had a house in Flagstaff and left it to you? Specifically to you? Specifically to me? Yes. Marco looked up from the tablecloth for the first time. Enzo set the document down. He straightened it against the table surface with 2 fingers, as though the precision of the action might restore some order to the situation. There must be a challenge to this. The estate, if Bernard had a property of that value, the estate division was handled through probate, which closed 11 months ago. I kept my voice completely level. There is no basis for a challenge. Bernard named me specifically. The language in the will is unambiguous. Dina had set her fork down. She was looking at me with an expression I had never seen her wear before, not calculation, not careful neutrality, but something that looked almost like relief. Like a person watching a door they had been pressed against suddenly swing open. Enzo tried first. The family's expectation was that any significant asset from your family's estate would come to the family investment fund. I nodded slowly. I know. That was made clear to me on multiple occasions by your wife, and then by you directly, in front of your entire family, at Marco's house in November. I want you to know that I remember each of those conversations in significant detail, and I want you to also know that at no point did I agree to any of it, even when you believed I had. Enzo opened his mouth. Something shifted behind his eyes, the recalibration of a man who has operated from a position of complete authority for so long that genuine opposition has become genuinely unfamiliar. We invested in this family, he said. Everything we have built has nothing to do with my uncle's house. My voice had not risen a single degree. Or with the $42,000, which is also not available, because it is currently held in an educational trust for Lily that was established 14 months ago and has been managed by my financial advisor since then. The silence that followed was the kind that has weight. Marco exhaled through his nose, a long, slow breath that was not quite a sigh and not quite a statement. His wife reached over and touched his forearm without looking at him. Gloria's composure fractured along a specific visible seam. It started in her expression, which compressed in a way I had never seen, not anger, but the preliminary state before anger when a person is still deciding whether to feel that or something worse. Her grip on her pearls tightened until her knuckles showed the strain. You have been lying to us, she said. I have never lied to you. I met her eyes without difficulty. I have declined to share information that was not yours. Those are different things. For 14 months, you asked me 14 months ago to hand my inheritance to a fund I had no documentation for, no stake in, and no legal obligation to contribute to. My response was to consult an attorney and protect my daughter's financial future. Which is exactly what any responsible parent would do. Enzo pushed back his chair, not standing, just pushing back, creating distance between himself and the table, as though the physical space might give him room to reconstruct an argument. The house should be discussed with the family. We have a right to, you have no rights to my property. I said it cleanly. No emphasis, just the words. You are my husband's parents. We are connected by his marriage to me. You have no legal standing with respect to anything my uncle left me, and you have no legal standing with respect to Lily's trust. I want to make sure that is completely clear. The cousin, Renato, very quietly picked up his wine glass and took a sip. His wife looked at the ceiling. It was Marco who spoke next, and it surprised me. In 7 years, I had never once heard him push back against his father at a family table. He was the good son, the inside son, the one who had built his whole adult life inside the structure his father created. He cleared his throat. Dad, his voice was careful. We should stop. Enzo turned to look at him. The look contained something that had no warmth in it. She is not wrong, Marco said. We cannot, what we asked her to do, there was no legal basis for that. He paused. I have been telling myself it was a suggestion. It was not a suggestion after the 3rd time. Dina let out the breath she had been holding since the envelope opened. Gloria looked at her older son with an expression that combined betrayal and fury in proportions that reminded me, suddenly, of why she had always been the more dangerous of the two. Enzo could be reasoned with. Gloria operated on something older and less rational than reason. "You knew about this?" Her voice aimed at Marco like something targeted. "I knew we were pushing too hard." He did not look away. "I should have said so before now." The acknowledgement landed in the room. Nobody spoke for a full 4 seconds. I reached back into my bag. I took out a second document, this one a 2-page letter, also prepared by Renata, which I had been carrying for 3 weeks in the inside pocket of my bag at every Ferrara family event, waiting for the specific moment it became necessary. I put it on the table in front of Enzo. "This is from my attorney," I said. It outlines the trust structure for Lily's educational fund, the Flagstaff property transfer, and a formal request that all further communication regarding my personal finances be directed to Renata Voss rather than to me directly. Any future requests for contribution to family investment structures will be treated as formal financial demands and documented accordingly. Enzo looked at the letter. He did not pick it up. His face had done something in the last 4 minutes that I had never seen it do in 7 years of Sunday dinners and holiday gatherings. The authority had not left, it was too built in for that, but something underneath it had shifted. He looked, for the first time, like a man who had miscalculated. "You have been planning this." His voice was flat. "I have been protecting my family." I corrected him once, quietly. "Since the 4th of July gathering 2 years ago, when your wife suggested that my inheritance should come to this table." "Yes." Gloria stood up. She did not do it with the composure she normally deploys. Her chair scraped the floor and she stood with the particular unsteadiness of someone who has had their footing removed and is trying to pretend they haven't. Her hand left her necklace and pressed flat against the table. "We have done nothing but try to include you in this family. We offered you an investment in something that had real value. We offered Lily a legacy. You called my daughter worthless." My voice did not change. 22 minutes ago, at the Christmas table, in front of her. The sentence stopped Gloria completely. In the particular silence that followed, I watched her face go through something I had never witnessed in another person. Not shame, exactly. I do not think she is constructed for shame, but the specific experience of a justification she had been holding evaporating. She had said that word in the breezy, definitive way of a person who believed their authority made them unaccountable. And now that word was sitting in the center of the table between us, and it had a weight that her authority could not lift. Claudia, the cousin's wife, who had been silent since the appetizer course, pushed her chair back quietly and left the dining room. I heard her in the hallway, and then I heard her on the stairs, and I was almost certain she was going to find the children. Enzo looked at his wife. He did not defend her. He looked at her with the expression of a man doing arithmetic and not liking the answer. Marco was looking at his hands. Dina was looking at me. Her expression had completed its transformation into something I recognized after a moment as simple, uncomplicated respect. Daniel had sat back down at some point. I had not registered when. His hand found the table near mine without touching it, close, careful, present. Gloria sat back down. She did it slowly, like someone lowering themselves into cold water. Her composure reassembled itself by visible degrees, but it was thinner now. The architecture was the same, but the material was different. "I think," she said, with the formal precision of someone reading from a script they are composing in real time, "that this conversation has become unproductive." "I agree," I said, "so let me be clear about how it ends." I looked at her directly, and I looked at Enzo, and I made sure I had both of their attention before I continued. "The Flagstaff property is mine. I will make decisions about it on my own timeline with my own advisor. Lily's educational trust is not accessible to anyone in this family, and it will not be discussed at family gatherings again. The $42,000 from my uncle's liquid estate has been in that trust for over a year, and it has grown beyond that figure. Your investment fund will not be receiving it. None of this is negotiable, and none of it is changing." Enzo's jaw tightened. He picked up the letter from Renata and reviewed it in the way a man reviews something he cannot alter but needs to fully understand. His eyes moved through the pages without rushing. When he finished, he set it down and straightened it against the table surface again, that same two-finger gesture. "We will need to speak with our own attorney," he said. "Renata's contact information is at the top of the letter. She is available for any questions." Another silence. This one had a different quality than the others, not the shocked silence of revelation, but the dull, settling silence of finality. It was Daniel who spoke into it. His voice was quiet and tired and completely certain. "I think it's time for us to go." He stood. I stood. We did not rush. I put the copy of Renata's letter back in my bag, Enzo could keep his, and I pushed in my chair, and Daniel went to the bottom of the stairs and called up for Lily. She came down with Marco's youngest behind her. She had chocolate on the corner of her mouth from a piece of candy someone had given her upstairs. She looked at the room, registered the atmosphere with the precise barometer of a child who has grown up understanding that adult silences have meaning, and came to stand next to me without being asked. "We're heading home, babe," I said. "Okay." She picked up her coat from the entry bench. Then she looked up at me and said, in the completely earnest way of an 8-year-old who has processed something and arrived at a conclusion, "Can we get hot chocolate on the way?" "Absolutely," I said. We left. The door closed behind us, and the cold Arizona air of December in the desert came in from the north with a clarity that felt, for a moment, like something earned. I did not look back at the house. Neither did Lily. She was already talking about whether peppermint hot chocolate counted as a real flavor or was just a holiday thing, and I was listening to her with the specific attentiveness of someone who has just been reminded exactly what they were protecting and why. The Ferraras were escorted out of our lives over the following 3 months, not by any single act, but by the slow institutional dismantling of everything they had assumed they controlled. Renata filed formal documentation with Enzo's attorney in January, a comprehensive record of every occasion on which the family had applied financial pressure regarding my inheritance. The attorney, to his credit, or perhaps simply in his own self-interest, reviewed the file and advised his clients that there was no legal claim to pursue. Enzo called Daniel twice. Daniel answered the first time, listened for 6 minutes, and then said, very clearly and without anger, "We are done with this conversation." He did not answer the second call. Gloria attempted to route her next move through Marco. She called him the week after New Year and asked him to speak to Daniel on the family's behalf, to explain that the dinner had been a misunderstanding, and that she had not meant what she said about Lily. Marco, to my genuine surprise, declined. He told her he agreed with Daniel's position and that he thought the family needed time. He called me separately 3 days later, which was the first time in 7 years he had ever called me without Daniel on the line. He apologized, not with the careful, managed language of someone performing reconciliation, with the blunt, uncomfortable directness of a person who knows they were wrong and has decided to say so without padding it. "I sat there and I let it happen," he said. "I should have stopped it the first time she said it. I didn't. I'm sorry, Nora." I thanked him, I meant it. Enzo did not call me. I did not expect him to. By February, Daniel and I had begun the legal process of establishing boundaries around family contact that Renata had outlined as an option the previous autumn. This was not a dramatic gesture, no court filings, no police involvement, because nothing that had happened at that table crossed into criminal territory. It was financial pressure and cruelty, and the remedy for those things is documentation, clarity, and distance. The Flagstaff house, I decided in March I would keep. Thomas walked me through 3 scenarios: sell, rent, or hold, and the numbers on rental income over a 5-year horizon were compelling enough to make holding and converting it to a rental property the clear choice. The first tenants moved in that spring. The monthly income from that property, combined with my Tempe rental and a consulting contract I had closed in February that was the largest of my career, meant that the financial life I had been quietly building while the Ferrara family assumed I had nothing was now fully, visibly, completely my own. Lily's educational trust crossed $50,000 in April, which Thomas noted in the quarterly statement with the dry, professional satisfaction of a man who appreciates when a plan works the way it was designed to work. Lily herself is thriving in a way that I monitor carefully and do not take for granted. She started a new semester at her school in January and made a friend named Priya who lives 2 streets over and shares her inexplicable passion for competitive rock-paper-scissors tournaments. She has not asked about Gloria or Enzo. Children are, in my experience, better than adults at identifying who belongs in their life and quietly letting go of who does not. The last thing I have to tell you is small and is the part that has stayed with me most. It was a Tuesday evening in late March. Lily was at the kitchen table doing homework, and I was on the couch nearby going through emails, and she looked up suddenly and said, "Mom, at Christmas, that lady said I was worthless." I set my phone down. "She did. Is that true?" "No," I said. "It is not true. Not even a little bit." She looked at me for a moment with the particular thoroughness of a child evaluating whether an adult is telling the truth or the comfortable version. Then she nodded, apparently satisfied, and went back to her homework. I picked up my phone and sat with the ordinary miraculous fact of a Tuesday night, a warm kitchen, a homework problem being solved, and a daughter who had been told she was nothing and had simply, entirely, rejected it. That felt like enough. So did I go too far, or not far enough? Tell me in the comments.